damages is not based on numbers. If the Israeli army kills 10 and they kill 5, then we reach the collateral damages rule. That's not the way to see. It is basically a proportionality test. It is basically a test which takes into account the needs to fulfill the purpose of the army and the needs to take into account the life of innocent people. And the Israeli army was educated very well that those tests, or these tests of balancing, will be fulfilled. So I do hope that the world will understand in the situation we are in. We have an enemy who violates every rule of international humanitarian law. And we have an army who tries, sometimes mistakes are done, of course, who tries not to kill civilians, innocent civilians, and who is obliged to minimize the collateral damages as they can, and they do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justice Barak. Now we'll go to Zoom, where we have waiting Professor Eyal Ben-Venisti. Eyal, bevakasha.
Hello. I wish to describe the position of international law with respect to the abduction of civilians and their forced disappearance. I will talk about the definition of crimes and about the responsibility of states and other actors. First, about war crimes and crimes against humanity perpetrated against the hostages. Article 7 of the Statute of the International Criminal Court provides a list of crimes against humanity. Beyond crimes such as murdering, torturing, and raping civilians, here are the specific crimes related to the taking of and holding of hostages perpetrated systematically against the civilian population in the vicinity of the border with Gaza on and since the 7th of October. First, imprisonment or other severe deprivations of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law. Then, enforced disappearance of persons. Enforced disappearance is defined as the arrest, detention, or abduction of persons by or with the authorization, support, or acquiescence of a state or a political organization, followed by a refusal to acknowledge the deprivation of freedom or to give information on the fate or whereabouts of those persons with the intention of removing them from the protection of the law for a prolonged period of time. Then, persecution, which means the intentional and severe deprivation of fundamental rights contrary to international law by reason of the identity of the group or collectivity. Then, transfer of population without grounds permitted under international law. And finally, other inhumane acts intentionally causing great suffering or serious injury to body or to mental or physical harm. This was the list of crimes against humanity. Now to the defined war crimes by the same statute. These include unlawful deportation or transfer or unlawful confinement, then the taking of hostages, and finally committing outrages upon personal dignity. So these crimes, the holding of hostages violate also a number of international human rights treaties, such as the Convention Against Torture, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Let me move to the question of responsibility. Obviously, all individuals are criminally responsible for war crimes and crimes against humanity that they commit. Beyond this, the Hamas, as a political and military organization in control over the Gaza Strip, is responsible under international law for any violations and crimes committed by its agents, and it is now responsible for the human rights of individuals held within the territory under its control. This has been acknowledged by the United Nations Secretary General and by several UN Special Rapporteurs who have called upon Hamas to release all hostages immediately and unconditionally. Finally, I want to address the question of responsibility of other states and of international organizations. Crimes against humanity are crimes against humanity. It is humanity, each and every one of us, who is a victim, because the very idea of human dignity is violated by such crimes, and it is continuing to be dishonored as we speak. This can explain why, under international law of state responsibility, all states can regard themselves as directly injured by such crimes, and they have the right to respond. But it's not only the right to respond, there is also a responsibility to respond. Under general international law, and specifically under international humanitarian law, all states, including those that are not parties to a conflict, are under an obligation to ensure that the requirements of the law are complied with. And this is acknowledged by the International Court of Justice. Let me read from Article 38, Paragraph 1 of the Convention on the Right of the Child, which is particularly telling and to the point in this context. In this article, states parties undertake to respect and to ensure respect for rules of international humanitarian law applicable to them in armed conflict which are relevant to the child. So anywhere on earth where child are being deprived of their rights, under international law, state parties have the obligation to respect and to ensure those rights. It is the responsibility of all states to do all in their power to end the continuous commission of crimes against humanity and war crimes, and to prosecute the perpetrators. It is the responsibility of the Red Cross and UN treaty bodies and other UN actors to do the utmost to end the commission of these crimes. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Justice Rehenes.
We just heard now a very clear legal analysis of the situation under international law. And I think we can nothing add. It's so clear that all that we are discussing are crimes against humanity, crimes against war crimes. October 7th, almost a month ago, was the international community received a war sign. Warning of danger to states in the world, to every human being, is what happened here, and we have to realize it. What happened on that day was a brutal attack on innocent civilians who celebrated a holiday with friends and families. Babies, kids, their parents, mothers and grandmothers were murdered, shot in the beds, wounded and kidnapped by war criminals. Don't be mistaken. Don't mix it with war for freedom of anyone. This is not a war for freedom. This was a cruel massacre, monstrous, perpetrating war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, universal crimes, you don't need to be an expert on international law to identify the behavior of Hamas as war crimes, worse than ISIS, crimes which we never saw before. Those are crimes against humanity, against every human being. Anyone can be the next victim. A terror organization that keeps babies, children, and elderly women as hostages without medical care that they need, no access to the Red Cross, to medical treatment, or any information, even information about their fate and their conditions. We demand all the states, as we heard now from the legal point of view and from the human point of view, from all international organizations, from every country who is a member in our international community, to insist to immediate and unconditional release of the kidnapped hostages. Moreover, every state, every civilized organization in society has to stop any assistance to Hamas and to ban their inciting propaganda, which is now spreading all over the world. Time is at the essence. We demand urgent proactivity. It's a matter of life and death to save and release them as quick as possible, and the Hamas has no right to put conditions for their release. I'm sure that every state that knows what happened is bound to act immediately to release not only their own citizens that are captured there, and we know that there are many citizens of other states, everybody were just captured because they were there, but all of them, no matter if they're Israelis or others, all of them are kept in the hands of cruel, inhuman war criminals. I think that we are expecting everybody to cooperate and to do everything, to put sanctions, to put all the power of states to stop this crazy, cruel world that we found now, we saw them now, and I think all the communities in the world, organizations, states, formal and informal, should cooperate as quick as possible to make an end to this nightmare. We wish it will really be very quick and very efficient.
Thank you, Justice Bain. The next speaker will be Dr. Shelley Aviv.
Families, honorable justices, and esteemed colleagues here with me. First, my heart goes out to the families who have been forced to deal with this nightmare for the last 28 days. I owe it to them to call upon the international community to demand the release of their loved ones. The term international community is rooted in an ethical and moral considerations, a community of values which, when disrupted, requires a decisive response. The brutal, premeditated attack, the kidnapping of civilians in their own homes, constitute gross violations of international law, as well as the gravest violations of international criminal law. In the wake of the unbearable atrocities of the Holocaust, the international community gathered and declared, never again. Never again. Much of modern international law has been shaped by the lessons learned from the tragedy of the Jewish people. Regrettably, we now find ourselves facing another instance of widespread and systematic targeting of Jewish people as such, including women, children, and the elderly. This is a ruthless and horrifying attack by terrorists who deliberately aim at civilian population. The Hostages and Missing Persons Families Forum has consistently and assertively engaged with the international community, demanding proactive action to ensure the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages held in Gaza by Hamas. In response to our call, over 300 distinguished international legal experts have endorsed the assertion that Hamas actions amount to war crimes, crimes against humanity, and most probably genocide. More than 700 experts have supported our plea for the immediate release of kidnapped children and infants. Over 30 children under the age of 18 are kept by Hamas as hostages, including 5 infants under the age of 3. 5 children under the age of 3 are hostages of Hamas. Let this sink in. Do you have children? Can you even imagine? We have submitted multiple requests on behalf of the families to various United Nations entities, including the Secretary General, the High Commissioner of Human Rights, and the President of the Human Rights Council, as well as the President of the International Committee of the Red Cross, UNICEF, and Amnesty International. We approached UN mandate holders, such as the Working Group on Enforced and Involuntary Disappearances, the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. There are persons with life-threatening conditions held by Hamas in Gaza, such as breast cancer, heart failure, brain tumors, and life-threatening injuries. They need to be treated now, immediately. We requested all mandate holders to exercise their mandate to demand the immediate release of the hostages. We contacted NGOs, civil society organizations, and people of influence to demonstrate solidarity and to act for the release of the hostages. We've also approached individual states, asking them to take all possible measures to resolve the situation immediately. Our efforts have encountered tremendous support from the Israeli academia, which is all-heartedly dedicated to secure the release of the hostages, especially the legal clinics. We do hope that the global academia will follow suit. We call upon the international community to take a clear and unwavering stance to act decisively to release all hostages. We need your help. The families, the captives, need your help. If the term international community is to have a real significance, then never again must truly mean never again.
Now we have Advocate Yuval Sasson.
Releasing the hostages is not just a matter of fighting and diplomacy. Everyone should ask himself, what can I do to further the cause? Everyone should ask himself this question every and single morning. When the world said never again, it has created an opportunity not only to prevent and punish in years to come, also to effectively fight genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. We are used to the wheels of justice turning slow. There is no time, and the wheels of justice must turn swiftly. We urge the world to take any possible action to further the pressure on Hamas to release them now. Hamas crimes, as we've heard, are crimes against humanity. As such, they are universal by nature, meaning every and any country has jurisdiction over the matter. Every single country in the world. Hamas has said to kill every Israeli and every Jew. By this, they have committed the crime of genocide. But the crimes were not just taken against Israelis. They were taken against human beings, infants, children, women, men, and elders. Among those abducted, there are Americans, German, French, Argentinian, Russian, British, Dutch, Chinese, Polish, Tanzanian, Colombian, South African, Serbian, Spanish, Chilean, Austrian, Danish, Swiss, Austrian, Canadian, Mexican, Romanian, Portuguese, Thai, all citizens of the world who are just dancing, loving, hugging, sleeping, dreaming, working, when help came upon them and the devil abducted them and committed other heinous crimes to them. The legal system has teeth. If these teeth will not bite now, then when? We are acting to ensure that those responsible, directly and indirectly, as aiders and abettors, financiers, supporters of Hamas ideology, all must be tried and brought to justice. All must pay a price. Our actions are not just set against those that no language has a word to define or to describe what they have done, their atrocities. Our actions are against their leaders, sitting in 5-star hotels and traveling in private jets. Our actions are against those that finance them, that still are financing them. Those that willfully turned a blind eye. Those that supported them. Those that are supporting them now, in any way or manner. All of the above cannot continue with their daily business right now. Pressure must be put on all of them immediately to have them act to release the kidnapped now. The world has to act. Western society must act. Any nation adhering to the rule of law must act. The international legal community must act. International organizations must act. This needs to be done yesterday in order to help bring them home, those held by the Hamas, and then tomorrow to help bring justice. Being idle is not an option. There is a list of actions of immediate effect, a list of actions that any of the states that I mentioned before, and so many other states, must take now. International arrest warrants must be taken out. Extradition requests, freezing of assets, sanctions, declarations of Hamas aiders and abettors as terrorist organizations and terrorist supporters. They cannot continue with their daily business. Once we put pressure not only on the ones that are holding the hostages, once we put the pressure on anyone supporting them, anyone aiding them, anyone abetting for this, then they will in turn put pressure on the people holding the kidnapped in order to release them. This is the action that must be taken now, not in years to come. The tools are out there. Those sitting in hotels, those traveling with jets, those paying all of them, must stop doing it now. We ask the world to take a stand, because it is our kids and your kids, our babies and your babies, our mothers and your mothers, our sisters and your sisters. And because if you don't act now, tomorrow it will happen to you. We plan to work together to swiftly build an international League of Justice and help bring them home now.
Thank you. Our final speaker is General Iran.
Dear families, my hearts go to you. Following the tragic massacre crudely orchestrated by the terrorist organization Hamas on October 7th, we found ourselves in a state of profound sorrow and anger. A malicious attempt by the terrorist organization to target us solely because of our Jewish identity has not only taken us by surprise, but has also deepened the sense of loss and pain in our community. However, we firmly believe that pain and sorrow should not define our course of action. In response, my friends and I, and when I say my friends, experts in law enforcement, content data, software specialists, all joined together in order to establish this kind of site dedicated to Hamas crime against humanity. In response, my friend and I have made a deliberate choice to channel our anguish and outrage towards collection of primary evidence documenting the horrors that transpired. This body of evidence will serve as foundational support for the grave accusation against the terrorist organization Hamas, which encompass crime of genocide, war crime, and crime against humanity. This trailer was created by Uri Shinar, my friend and other friends of his, and is the trailer for the site we established. This is a soft version of what you can see in this secure site, which is aimed, this website is dedicated to documenting the Hamas crimes with the primary purpose of unifying the international community in demanding that Hamas and their international enablers release the hostage unharmed and without further delay now. I'll briefly show you how the site looks like. Just don't want you to expose to the categories that are in the site, but believe me, you don't want to see it. It's a secure site, as I mentioned. Throughout history, there have been moments when the world stood silent in the face of unimaginable horrors. We, however, are resolute in our determination not to remain silent. It is our solemn duty to present the world with the indisputable evidence that lays bare of the evil deeds, the brutality, the murder, the animalistic violence exhibited by the terrorist organization known as Hamas ISIS.
We've now concluded the presentations by our speakers. Thank you very much to all of you and to the members of the panel who shared their thoughts. We're going to conclude now with singing the Israel national anthem, Hatikva.
Thank you.